All right, you are now live.
Okay. This is Senate Appropriations, and our first item of business today is to vote out S-114. We had testimony on Friday. We were proposing to amend the bill that it came in from the education because we were aligning it with what we had done in the fast track bill. So in the fast track bill, we included the funding. We also included a limited service position. And the other language that we wanted removed was language that was instructive that the agency should include in its next year's budget presentation, the funding, which is not a normal practice to do that kind of forward budgeting obligation. So we have the amendment, and Chrissy has just brought it up. We just simply need to vote out the bill now that we have the bill as amended. So the clerk will call the roll on the amendment and then the bill as amended. If we could, or we can do it all in one step, and that is to move the bill as amended.
Amended. Do you need a motion?
Yes,
Move the bill as amended.
Yeah. I'll second.
Senator Baruth, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I was just wondering which it was, but it's moved as amendment.
Yes.
Okay, so Senator Ballin. Senator
Yes.
Ballin. Senator Baruth, yes. Senator Nitka.
Yes.
Senator Sears. Senator Sears?
He's away.
Oh, okay. Senator Starr.
Yes.
Senator Westman.
Yes.
Senator Kitchell.
Yes.
Madam Chair, would you like to hold the vote open for Senator Sears? He'll be back in 10 minutes, he said.
Okay. Why don't we hold the vote open?
Okay.
And just ask him how we would vote.
Okay.
Okay. Our next at 2:00, which it is.
And am I right that, just to clarify, I'll be reporting that?
Yes, you're the reporter.
Okay.
We split it up. Senator Ballin did one this morning, and you were going to do this one.
Okay, good enough.
Okay. So I'm going to move us on now to at 2:00, and we have the treasurer here to present the budget, a recommended budget for the state office of the treasurer. I assume the treasurer's here. Chrissy?
She's on her way. Her staff is in the room and she'll be here any moment.
All right, thank you.
And Ashlyn, if you can hear me. Oh, hi, Will. Question, do you want me to share screen, give you access to share screen, or would you like me to do the presentation for you?
If you are able to provide John Booth access to share the screen, Chrissy, he's prepared to move through the documents.
John Booth, great. I'm going to do that right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. John, you are officially a co-host.
John, you're on mute. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
And Senator Kitchell, the treasurer, has joined us. She's just entered the room.
All right, thank you. So I'm gonna, if the treasurer is on, and we're gonna do screen sharing, so I can't see everyone, obviously. I can see Senator Starr, Senator Baruth, and Senator Nitka. So the other senators, I assume, are on except for Senator Sears, and I assume the treasurer and her staff are on. So at this point, I'm going to ask the treasurer to give us the presentation of her budget request. We're going to, like we always do, probably keep it at a higher level. We know that there's certain expenditures that get reflected every year and move up and down, but if you could give us your request and the highlights and other work or accomplishments, or what you see as the challenges confronting your office, that would be great. So Senator Pierce, I'm going to let you take it from this document that we have on our screen and go forward with your presentation.
Well, first, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you about the budget for the Treasurer's Office. And I would like to introduce my team, which I believe are on the remote process today, or our system. And first, I'd like to introduce Will Krewald. He's our CFO, and his office, in connection with John Booth, our Director of Treasury Operations, are primarily responsible for developing the budget. Ashlyn Doyon is also on. She's our our policy analyst. And as we go through the presentation, we would be happy to answer questions if that approach works for you, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Okay, our general budget meets the administration's target. In fact, our general budget is less than the fiscal year 2009 budget, which I'm not sure many departments can say that. It's lean, but as we say, it's not mean. And there's a real collaborative approach in our office to working with the various departments. And I want to thank them for their work, for their talent, their ability to communicate and collaborate to get this done. We don't have silos in our office. There are no real surprises. Our staff levels have been relatively constant over the years. Our positions this year are no increase over the prior year. And so again, we don't see any real surprises in the general budget. We also have an unclaimed property budget, and it's just $467 over the 2021 budget. So I won't go into the details for $400. But,
Yeah.
Okay. As you recall, the legislature and the governor signed what's called the Revised Uniform Unclaimed Property Act this past year. As a consumer protection piece, it requires holding equities that are remitted to the unclaimed property for 3 years before any sale of those, which then makes those available to the rightful owner in the form of cash. Prior to that, it was a 1-year requirement. As a result, we expect the unclaimed property transfer to the general fund to be about $900,000 less than the 2021 budget. It's too early to determine what the actual number for the 2000 transfer will be. Starting very soon, I always get a call from Steve Klein saying, "Do you know the number yet? Do you know the number yet?" And the answer is we won't know till about May. We continue to see a reduction in direct investment manager fees in our pension programs. This has been significant as we've worked to improve our portfolio. This is probably the last year that we expect these reductions, because we will be.
I think we need to scroll down because I think we're not seeing the state employees retirement system. There we are. Thank you.
Yeah, and as we're looking at this, it really is the combination of the state, the municipal, and the teacher program where we see the same trend, which is a reduction in our investment fees. And as we've changed the portfolio, as we've tweaked it, we've been able to see some significant improvement and lowering of those costs. I do think we bottomed out on that as we're filling what we call the buckets for private debt and private equity. So we think that we've bottomed out, but it's been a good story to tell. I do want to address the letter we sent you on March 3rd on the importance of acting on our pension and OPEB, OPEB referring to other post-employment benefits, primarily healthcare. Our proposals would reduce the OPEB liabilities by $1.68 billion compared to what we would estimate to have in 2022. Our pension proposals, if enacted, would reduce the unfunded liability by over $474 million and reduce the fiscal year 22 ADEC by $85.4 million. Since the governor's budget has included the full funding of the ADEC, the resulting change would provide additional freed up dollars for the. While this is an important consideration, our primary goal is making sure that that we have secured, sustainable retirement programs over the years for this generation, for the next generation, and every generation after that. As painful as our recommendations are, and we recognize they're painful, we owe it to our future retirees to have a system that can provide retirement security for years to come. Again, we understand that the General Assembly will likely make changes. It's been a rare occasion that I've sent something over to you and you say, that's it, we're done, let's go with it. You do make changes. We do have a conversation about that and work together to get it done. But we really do urge you to maintain the scale of the proposed dollars. And that's very important as we look at our current trajectory of estimates of the ADEC. And I know this has been a concern for you, Madam Chair, and your committee. If without action, without interaction on this, we would estimate that by 2037, the ADEC, the actuarially determined employer contribution, would be roughly $500 million, $500 million. If we do not act, and I think the time to act now, and we kick this down the road, I think that the consequences for employees, for taxpayers, for the budget are massive, and we need to act.
Let me ask you, Treasurer. I know that the way we understood it was the House Government Operations was taking, they were taking the lead on considering the proposals that you were advancing because it was a combination of making changes that would help moderate the cost of what we have in place and make it more fiscally sustainable, but it was also combined with more money. Could you just tell us what the status is of that legislation?
Sure.
Because obviously we're getting, everybody says, you know, we need more time, we need to study it more. So if you could just brief us on, my understanding is that they should wrap that up by the end of March. And so we have not spent a lot of time on the details of this since the last time you were in. Because we thought we would do it as part of that whole pension discussion. But if you could just give us what is happening based on your testimony or understanding.
Sure. Well, we very much hope that it will be done by March, the end of March, March 31st. We had hoped that the House budget would include the funding of the teacher OPEB, which would be a reduction in unfunded liabilities by $800+ million. You know, we talk about the four buckets, you know, the two OPEBs, the two pensions. But they also stand on their own. And I would urge folks to take a look and make sure that we do what's ready to go. I can't see why anyone would object to that plan, which is just creating a pre-funding mechanism, a policy for that. It does require some upfront dollars and some discipline going forward. But $800 million is something that, in terms of reductions to the unfunded liability, is something that we need to do now. I am disappointed that that was not included in the House budget. However, I believe—
Well, they haven't passed their budget yet.
Okay. My understanding is that it won't be, that it will not be in there. And I would urge reconsideration of that and moving forward with the, with the OPEB proposal that we have. And again, that was my understanding. If I'm wrong, I would be delighted to see that in there. And I know how hard they work, but I think that this is an important piece and an important statement to the rating agencies that we're moving forward, that we've addressed one of the OPEB issues, and that we still have 3 more to go, another OPEB and 2 pensions. And I would look for a clear direction this year, this fiscal year, on where to go with the making those changes to the pension system. We're going to be starting, well, let me go back to your question. We have had several conversations with GovOps, House GovOps, testimony by the chairs of the state system, and the chair of the the chair of the teacher system, and the chair of the state system will be testifying tomorrow. Tom Galanko, who's chair of the investment committee, has been in there. They requested a presentation by the actuary, which is Siegel, and Kathy Riley, a principal in that firm, testified also. I understand that they've received other testimony as they've gone forward, and I'm looking forward to my opportunity to testify in these issues as well. I have not seen what the proposals would look like at this point, but I would urge folks to come up with a proposal that is within the scale of what we recommended. And our recommendation has about $474 million of reduction in the unfunded liability, and I think that's very important. And Will, if I get that correctly, I believe it's about $85 million of reductions in the ADEC. And
Yeah, Beth, it's 85.4. It's actually on the screen right now, so everyone can see that under the recommended changes column, and it says total.
Yeah.
Here's the 474 million of savings on the unfunded liability and the 85.4 on the ADEC.
Now, since the governor's budget included the full ADEC, as I said, the resulting change would free up budget dollars and, more importantly, secure retirement to come. So we're looking forward to that. And again, if I have misspoken and that the OPEB is in the House budget, I would be very happy to see that. To date, the indications that I've had is that it will not be there. I think that's a disappointment on my part. And I think that that's not a good sign to the rating agencies. And we will begin our discussions and meetings with the rating agencies on March 31st and through the first week of April. And as you know, it's not just a question of how that rating impacts our bonds. It also has an impact on the various agencies that provide services to this state. VHFA, the housing services, VIA, economic development, VSAC to a limited extent, but VSAC in terms of providing assistance to Vermonters that are pursuing post-secondary education. And the bond bank, the municipal bond bank, which provides the bricks and mortar for all of your communities. Now, this is not the only issue. Clearly, the demographics of the state, the workforce issues are important. But this one is something that immediately can be a statement of going in the right direction, a statement that.
Well, I agree with you, Beth, but we need a statement that we can honor.
Yeah.
It's very easy but the question really becomes what's a reasonable a commitment. And I know that, one of the proposals was increasing amount. I think it was up to 10% for a number of years. And so some of what we're trying to sort out is there are two things. There are pensions, and then there's the OPEB, which is primarily healthcare. We changed and moved the teacher's normal requirement to the education fund.
Yes.
We did that in 2018. And we had in 2013, the ARC was 11 million. By 2018, it was just 7 million. That's a very significant decrease in the contribution. And then in 1 year, it jumped to 38 million. So it raises questions, I would say, between 18 and the revised ARC for 22 or ADEC. We must have, if we go back, looking at what we paid in relative to the assumptions, what was the amount of underfunding per year? We have not made a decision where that responsibility for underfunding should go. It just is there by default. It's coming to the general fund. The other part is the teacher's retirement, which no one really, we paid for it out of the corpus of the pension fund, which exacerbated the underfunding. We understand that. So the question we are going to be talking about is, should, in fact, that be considered a cost of our K through 12 system? And that is the payments for that post-retirement benefit for our current employees. And so there's a number of decisions in terms of where the funding obligation should be underwritten, what it will look like. So we're going to have to spend a lot more time really understanding that, and we'll let you just know that these are part of our discussions around how much of this is sustainable on the general fund, because there is a significant interplay between the decisions that are made. And we never specifically address that issue when we move the normal retirement, what happens with the underfunding if that ADEC for the normal retirement should have been at a different level. So that's some of the discussion yet out before this committee.
Well, let me answer the issue of underfunding. So it was 8 million, it's dropped, and the reason it dropped is normal cost is a percentage of payroll. And as you know, the payroll, total payroll for the teachers had, or the number of teachers had some decline during that period. So there was.
Well, the numbers didn't change that much. I mean, I looked at the enrollee numbers and it was not very much, maybe 100.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's done on a basis of payroll. What's happened since then? So there was no underfunding. That was the number that the actuaries gave us, and that was an accurate number at the time. What we've done is had what's called a experience study. By statute, that is done every 5 years. We've actually done it more frequently than that, and I would recommend that the statute be changed to have a 3-year process. So we did it back in 15 for the 14 period. We did it again in 17 and again in 20. That changed the assumptions considerably for 2 reasons. One is the interest rate that we are applying the assumption. That is not a reflection, and I need to be very clear about that. That is not a reflection of the performance of the fund. It is a reflection of the national economy. It's a reflection of the changes in federal monetary policy. It's a reflection in terms of the overall direction that the market is going in. And you see across the country that plans are making reductions to their assumed rate of return. We did that, and that's had an impact. In addition to that, there were a number of demographic changes, particularly in the teacher system. While we talk about the rate of return, that is a big chunk of money with respect to the increase in unfunded liabilities. But the other part was the demographics of the system. And a large part of those demographics relate to changes that have been made at the local level. You know, the pressures of property tax, the pressures of reorganizations, the pressure of COVID. The number of retirees and the retiree experience and the turnover in staff are the single largest increases in gains and losses that we see outside of the assumption changes themselves.
Well, that's why when we had the presentation from Chris Roop, when he said 5 years was when we did the experience study, my question was, that seems like a very long time to be truing up. And 3 years, I don't even know, maybe 3 years, maybe it should be 2 years to get that true up, because 5 years you can really build up a very significant underfunding. The numbers can be swayed very much, but we'll keep going because we're getting into a discussion that the committee is going to have later on relative to what action we take on pensions, the use of one-time money. We have done that in the past. Our plan certainly is to do that. I know that people have different ideas about what needs to be done, but it's a very significant problem converging at a time when it's really very difficult to address it. But we are going to try to sort this out the best we can, and not put forward commitments that either we can't meet or we fully understand what it will mean to meet them, which either means tax increases or it can mean we're going to have to reduce government services and benefits.
Well, I would say a couple of things to that. One is that we did do a partial experience study that dealt with the economic factors in 2017. So we adjusted 3 years ago the rate of return, the cost of living adjustments and assumptions, and part of that is that's part of the real rate of return was the inflation assessment. So it has been done on a 3-year basis. Several years ago, the rate was 8%, then it went down to 7.95%, then went down in 17 to 7.5%, and now we're at 7%. And again, that is a national trend that you see in pension plans, a reflection of the economy and the investment markets. We additionally, I guess what I would say, Madam Chair, is that not doing these proposals actually creates more pressure on the budget. If you were to act on on our proposals or keep something within that scale, you would free up $85 million in the budget. That could be used to fund the OPEB. And again, that 10% is 3 years going forward, and then 3% after that, which is a very reasonable amount with respect to inflation. And it also provides consistency in the budget, where the ADAC wouldn't go up and down per year. It would have a predictable amount that you could build into the base budget. But you would free up $85 million this year that could be used to meet other obligations, including the OPEB. And going forward, you would reduce the pressure and the amount of ADAC that would be required. So this is a short-term and a long-term proposal. It provides the budget flexibility, provides the budgetary relief, and at the same time, the most important goal is it's providing retirement security for employees and retirees to come.
Right. Well, we are going to have to spend a lot more time, and obviously the calculus that you just rolled out is something we need to have more time, and our joint fiscal committee can help us sort out the numbers, both short-term and long-term. I'm just looking at the committee. Any questions of the treasurer so far? Okay. So your budget as it relates to the treasurer's office itself is pretty straightforward. Nothing moving much there. There is that kind of an impact of moving on the surplus properties from that 1 year to 3 years, which is a kind of, which I would think at the end of the 3 years would level out. It's just that we're experiencing that phase in. And then the other is the larger pension discussion about how we proceed.
Yes.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I have one.
All right, Senator Starr, I can't see you, but that voice is hard not to miss.
Yeah. Beth, I got a couple of questions on rate of return.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to know what type of a rate of return that we received this past year on our retirement money that must be invested somewheres. And I'd also like to know if you handle this, what are the amount of money that we made on COVID money that was sitting in the pot waiting to be spent.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, I can't, I had it on my, anticipating that question on my machine, but I can't get to that. So Will, if you could pull up under the retirement, let's do the state employees. They have slightly different numbers, but it's comparable. Go to, state retirement, state employees, the financial section, and then pull up the investment performance numbers for December. And you have to go a few pages in, but it will give you the numbers. While he's doing that, I would point out that right now is in December. We are in double-digit numbers for the 1 year return. The 1, 3, 5, and I believe 7 are all at this point over the I think the lowest number in that group, I'm doing this from memory, so we'll see how close I get when Will pulls it up, are over 7%. Our 15-year number was in the 6% area, a little north of 6%. Keep in mind that included the Great Recession. We are now in the top quartile in the country in terms of our performance. Whether you take a look at it, and pension performance will vary by markets. If you're in a boom market and you tend to take a little bit more conservative approach, which we did coming out of the Great Recession, you're going to do a little not as well. But on the other hand, when you have market declines, which we saw recently before the next boom, we were able to withstand those with our portfolio having some of the defensive strategies that we did, and we performed way better than other retirement plans. Our goal is to have something that's in the top half on a consistent basis. As I say, we're in the top quartile right now. And Will, I don't know if you're shaking your head. Are we there?
I've got the number. John is the one sharing his screen. I was hoping he could maybe just pull it up for you. I'm on the 11th page of it, Beth, which shows the all public plans comparison. So I'm seeing total fund quarter to date of 9.4% and fiscal year to date of 14.98%. Are those the numbers you remember?
14, and then if you look at the 1 year, it's something in the area of 15%.
So the fiscal year to date is 14.98, so that'd be 15%, and I'm seeing 13 for the 1 year through December. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, now annualizing that's not an annual, that's to date. Annualizing that is not advisable. You could say, well, you're going to be way over 15%. You don't know what the markets are going to look like, between January and June. But now we're in a very healthy position. And
could I just interrupt for the committee? Joint Fiscal, Chris Roop has actually, and I think it was sent to us, did a comparison, because that was one of the questions. How does the Vermont return look relative to other plans? And I believe that, and Stephanie, if you're on, but if in advance of our work, we can go back and look at that comparison, because it was sort of like, how do we look relative to other pension plans because of the nature of the investments that pension plans have relative to individual investors. I was reading in CSG, there are a couple of states that actually assume no return when they're doing their ADEC.
Yeah.
I was rather surprised at that, but so Senator Starr, you've got the figures at least for the current. But we can get the comparison and with other states as well as the historical that's been developed for us by Joint Fiscal.
Well, of course, we have a lot of work ahead of us to figure this all out. But, if it's up around between 9 and 14%, that's really good. And we should have made quite a lot of money, because probably we were only figuring on 7 or 8. So there should have been a lot of extra money there to get dumped back into the retirement system. I'm just having trouble trying to figure out who the heck messed up in the retirement system numbers so bad that it jumps thousands or millions of dollars in 1 year, from 1 year to the next. And I don't think we've come to that conclusion.
Oh,
yet.
you're talking like the 379 million increase in underfunding for teachers?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
okay. Well, I guess what I would say to you is that no one messed up. What's happened is the markets have changed dramatically. We live in post the Great Recession, COVID. We live in some volatile periods. We did do an evaluation and a partial experience study in 17, and we lowered that from 7.95 to 7.5%. We've now lowered it from 7.5 to 7. I would agree that doing more frequent assessments makes sense, but it doesn't change the number. And the bottom line is that we need to pay the ADEC. We're now fully paying the ADEC, but the mistakes that we had.
Beth, let me go back and ask, would we not recalibrate the ADEC based on that experience study findings?
And we did.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. The more frequently that you do it, the more frequently we can recalibrate to make sure the ADEC is aligned with
The right number.
actual experience.
Yep. Well, again, I would point out that the investment, we did do a rate of return adjustment in 17. I would agree with you, and one of my recommendations to the House has been to do it every 3 years. I'm going to go back to Representative Starr's. I have just pulled up the numbers, and I'm not sure what JFO has the numbers, but we did it against the performance of public funds. I believe the $5 billion range. There are different benchmarks, but let me go through those numbers. So the 1 year number, or the fiscal year to date, is 14.98. The year one number, 1 year number as of December 31st is 13.08. The 3 year number is 8.55. The 5 year number is 9.77. And if you look at those numbers, they are between the 18th and the 20th percentile. The 7 year number is 7.14, which is in the 35th percentile. Now, 7.24 is a 10-year number, and yes, we were in a lower percentile at 69%, but we exceeded our rate of return. When you take a look at the, that's a 10-year number, the 15-year number, which is on another page on this report, I'd have to scroll for, that's where we're in the 6+ numbers, which has the impact of the Great Recession. Some of the changes that have been made over the years have had an impact. If you will recall, over the years, we had asked for a change in the way we paid for healthcare. Essentially, teachers' healthcare was being paid out of the pension fund as a sub-fund there, but not appropriated. And back in 2012, what we said is that for the $20 million that wasn't funded, that would cost the taxpayers about $60 million. We did not change that to around 2014 or possibly 15, and that resulted in additional losses to the pension system. The changes that we're seeing at the local level in the teacher system with respect to retirements experience, with respect to turnover of employees, has had a very significant impact on the push up of the unfunded liabilities for the teacher system. On the state system, we did a retirement incentive, or the legislature and the governor signed a retirement incentive, one back in 10 and one back, I believe, around 16. They added to the unfunded liability. The thought process was that we would leave a number of positions open as a result of that, and that did not happen. Did not meet the requisite goal to offset the cost. So we saw losses with respect to that. So there are experience losses, demographic losses, and we do have some investment losses. There's no ifs and buts about it compared over from a period of 2011 to 2020. But they frankly pale in respect to the demographic, particularly in the teacher system. When we did the experience study, it reflected a number of these changes. And what we saw was that 50% of the changes in the experience study were related to demographics, and the other 50% related to the investment return assumption. In the state system, it's about 30% demographics and 70% investment rate of return. Those demographics impacted the normal cost more proportionately than the unfunded liability. So as a consequence, the percentage of payroll that we use to define the normal cost went up significantly, which is why you have the $38 million increase, because the changes that were made based on the experience study disproportionately impacted the normal cost as a percent of the total. And that is
yeah. So my point on that, Beth, is those demographics didn't change all in 1 year. So that's where that truing up in terms of the demographics would have been maybe factored into the ADEC earlier. That was all I'm saying.
Yeah, and my recommendation is that we go to a 3-year process, which I testified on in the House, I believe.
Okay. All right. Other questions, I'm just saying we could spend a lot of time on this issue, and right now we had scheduled to just do the to the budget. So other questions, I don't want to shut any questions down, but in terms of the budget for 22 for the treasurer's office. Okay. Otherwise, we're going to have to spend more time on exactly what we do relative to the underfunding and how we fund the ADEC for both OPEB, for teachers OPEB, and also what we feel and understand what we're committing ourselves to do over the a period of time when you're talking about the calculus around if you make this payment, then the impact it has in terms of what you free up. You've thrown out figures like 85 million would be freed up this year, et cetera. We know the governor's budget includes the $50 million increase in the ADEC, assuming no changes are made to the pension system. So if some are made, then that 50 million would be available to apply toward the cost of the OPED ADEC or the pension ADEC. But that's going to take a little bit of sorting out on our part. We're going to need to have the right folks here from Joint Fiscal to be part of that discussion that we are obviously going to have.
Yeah, I would urge the folks from JFO to sit down with us and go through those numbers so that we can assist in any presentation you have on that. And again, freeing up $85 million allows you to fund the OPEB and reduces costs going forward. It's a win-win. You have more budget flexibility this year. You have more budget flexibility in years to come. And I guess it's a win-win-win because it provides retirement security to retirees, because the current system is not sustainable. And one of our recommendations is that you need to continue to have a defined benefit plan. We believe in that, but we believe also that we need to make these changes, however painful they are, so that we can have a retirement system for years to come.
Okay. All right. Well, solvency of the system is certainly a desirable objective. And I think that there's no avoiding that. And
So-
we are going to have to schedule, and we're going to have some meetings with our joint fiscal staff and Stephanie and Chris Roop. I've talked to them about getting some dedicated time, but this is crossover week, and it isn't the week we're going to really be able to focus on it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions for the treasurer?
Nope.
All right.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes,
You know,
certainly. I can't see you, Senator Westman, but I know it's you.
You can't see me. I'm here.
Well, I know on my screen.
Sorry. I would say that in the overall, when we talk about this with the public, we are getting buried in a lot of the individual issues of this, and there are a lot of pieces to this. It all reminds me of Congress and the federal government dealing with Social Security as they made changes. And as we look at that Social Security system, the age has gone up. It used to be lots of people retiring at 62 and 65, and now that's gone up.
Yes.
I think we could learn something by learning how to talk about this to the public better than we're doing. And, I have lots of teachers say to me, you promised us retirement, but when they started working 30 years ago, they weren't living 5 years longer than the average person in our population. And we need to make a better way of, in the overall, communicating to the public.
I would say, we've done presentations over the years to the legislature. We've done some presentations to various groups, including the employee groups, the chamber recently, the business roundtable. I think that the March 3rd letter that we sent to you is very comprehensive. It deals with the issues that are before us. We would be happy to distill that, Senator Westman, in a way that gets to your point. Sometimes I do get into the weeds just a little bit, but we're happy to distill that and work with you on that.
Competency to stand trial.
I had Senator White scheduled to come in tomorrow as well, but I'm sure it'd be great to get a jump on it. I can pull it up for you if you guys want.
Oh, Senator White's the reporter of the bill?
Senator Sears and Senator White, I think, were the two that were recommended to comment on the bill. So I'll leave it to you.
All right. Well, if Senator Sears can do it for the Appropriations Committee, I'd like to try to spin out as many of these bills if they're not hugely costly or controversial. So I don't want to put Senator Sears on the spot. I know S25, that's the cannabis regulation, might take a bit more time. So
Dick, you're muted.
Senator Sears is muted.
S3 may be controversial. I won't deny that. However, I believe it got a 5-0 vote out of committee, so I don't think it's that bad. The real issue, and I'm trying to find the fiscal note by Nolan. We estimate there's a forensic study committee in section 7 of the bill that this bill, by the way, was passed there's the fiscal note. This bill was passed last year by the Senate in somewhat similar fashion with the forensic study committee in it. And with the section that required the Vermont legal aid between $245,000 and $265,000. And I take the low on that. We had talked about 250 for them last year, I think. I think we took it out of the bill to place it into the big bill, but then
Right.
the House never passed the bill, so we didn't have to use it. And I would go the low end. I don't know that, I never really got and maybe Phil or Alice have, but I never got a good feel for why we need 205,000 to 255,000 for DMH for evaluations and legal representation.
I asked
Because
morning,
they already have they have attorney generals assigned to the Department of Mental Health.
I don't know if you remember, Dick, but I asked Morning
Yeah.
Fox that question, whether or not it was a way of saying, well, this new workload for legal aid is 250,000, so we should get a commensurate amount. He disagreed with that. He felt that it was an actual cost reflecting the number of evaluations. I think it's hard to see that myself.
I don't
So what we did last year was to take out the appropriation for consideration in the big bill.
Yeah, I
and-
think we funded the 15,000 for the
work group.
work group, because that's,
Okay. All right. Senator Nitka, you had a comment or a question?
I just want to say with regard to the money in the bill, the request from Morning Fox was, he said the range was 215,000 to 285,000. And he just says, okay, 250 is in the middle. He was talking about the need to do more evaluations and to cover the attorney to have more hearings and get witnesses to those hearings. So I don't know.
Well, if we're going to pull it out pending the big bill, we can have more discussion on it and just move the bill like we did last year with the funding for the work group.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. Actually, we told them in committee that the money would probably be.
Last year.
It has changed some. I will let you know that. One of the changes is that it takes the Attorney General out of representing the Department of Mental Health in these cases And that's part of the reason for the Department of Mental Health, I think. But it was just deemed that since the Attorney General.
Motion.
Yep.
So we are amending the bill by removing, what section is, well, 7. Okay. So we
Well,
have
part
a
of section 7.
All
part
of
of, is it all or part? We need to have an amendment,
Oh,
obviously.
right, no, section 7. Section 6 is the forensic working group. So
Okay,
that would remove section 7.
okay. All right.
wait a second, there's 7 that removes, that's just the money, Dick, right?
Just the money,
Okay. For both legal aid and.
DMH.
And
For everybody at this point. So we need to have an amendment written because it's not just striking section 7. Are there other parts of section 7 that need to be retained?
I don't think so.
I have a version that's not the final one, and my section 7 simply says the date it takes effect. So
Right.
do you, is that the,
No, section 8 is, I don't have the final draft either. I got it on my thing here.
Okay, so.
Let me look just to make sure.
We can have Bryn, was it Bryn who did the bill?
Eric,
Oh, Eric, okay. So I'm going to suggest that we get the amendment. We can move it now and get the amendment that removes the appropriation in the relevant section and let the bill move forward favorably.
so I want to understand this totally. We're removing the Vermont Legal Aid, the Department.
DMH,
Yes, and are we removing the money for the study?
no.
Okay,
No, I think that's what stays, the forensic work group.
yep, okay.
Stephanie, you're there. So committee, I'm going to hold the vote until we get the amendment to make sure that we doing what we just striking.
that's exactly what it
the
would do. I've got it now on my iPad. This section 7 is appropriations. A, the sum of
the appropriation section to those two entities, but the funding for the forensic study committee would move forward.
yeah.
In front of me, is the funding for the forensic study already drafted in the bill?
No, but it says members of the working group are not state attending meetings as permitted under 32 VSA 1010.
So that the question I'm having is there an appropriation somewhere to fund that, or you don't have to do that, but
No,
do
there
that?
is no appropriation for the forensic working group,
Okay.
just other than the direction that the members would get paid who are not state employees.
Which
So
is our standard language.
appropriate dollars.
Okay. So they basically will have to accommodate it within their existing budget. And is that the Department of Mental Health that has that?
Yep.
would-
The Department of Health is convening.
Okay. So there's no specifics referencing was the public information that Chris Roop developed, and he gave it to us, but he also gave it to those noon sessions that were made available to all legislators.
I will track it down and send it on to you.
Yeah, I think the
Okay.
date of it.
Okay, so